Hi and welcome to the Global Travel Planning Podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Collins, who with my expert guests will take you on a weekly journey to destinations around the globe, providing travel inspiration, itinerary ideas, practical tips and more to help you plan your next travel adventure. Welcome to episode 25 of the Global Travel Planning Podcast. In this episode, and continuing into episode 26, I have a fantastic conversation with Australian travel journalist Monique Ceccato about the stunning Scandinavian country of Norway. In today's episode, we focus on the challenges and joys Monique has experienced relocating from her home in Australia to Stavanger, Norway with her Norwegian partner. Join us as Monique shares her personal journey, insights and tips on setting up a new home in Norway. Also, don't miss episode 26 where we delve into why you should visit Norway, filled with travel inspiration and expert tips from Monique. But for this episode, I first started by asking Monique to share her background and how she became a travel journalist.
My story isn't exactly the linear story that most people kind of follow. So, way back when I was in university, which is too long ago to, I won't mention how long ago that was, but blogs were like digital marketing wasn't really a thing. And blogs were kind of just starting to emerge as something that maybe people should take note of. And it could potentially be a way to, build your business. So we had to start a blog and I started one and kind of kept it going after university, but it was all based on fashion. And because I'd started it around the time that blogs started becoming popular, I somehow wound up accidentally being like an OG influencer in Australia.
Okay.
Yeah. So, back when blogging was a really big thing, I had this blog going and somehow I'd managed to do the SEO really well on my blog, which was, again, another fluke. And I had an editor from Nine Honey Travel, email me and ask me if I could write a guide on the best brunches in Perth for Nine Honey Travel. And I was like, oh my God, yes. Oh, I think I can do it. And therein started my career as a travel writer because she kept coming back to me for articles about Perth. And when she moved she moved from Nine Honey Travel to AWOL, which was a pedestrian publication. And I ended up writing for them. She then introduced me to other editors and I kind of, took this, I guess, non-linear route into travel writing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, that's interesting. And I should also just say as well that, so you are originally from, you're obviously Aussie. I'm sure anybody listening is going to know that you're an Aussie, even though I'm also an Aussie and I don't sound like one because I've just become an Aussie. But you're originally from Perth, is that right?
I am, yes. But it's interesting over here, I keep getting mistaken for British. So,
oh, really?
Yes. And I think it's because I don't sound like Steve Irwin or, any of the Irwins or any of the kind of, prominent Australian figures on TV. I don't have that really strong Australian twang. So, yeah. But yes, I am from Perth.
Yes. Okay. Well, I was only in Perth last month. First time that I actually visited Perth, so that was an interesting because it's so far away from the East Coast because I live in Queensland in Brisbane. It's so far away. I know a lot of people don't ever go over there, so I was quite pleased after living in Australia for 7 years now that I actually managed to get over there. Mainly because my daughter has actually moved over to WA, so
amazing.
So that was exciting. Yeah. So, but now you're not living in Perth in Australia. You are living in Norway, which I have to say, so my husband spent 3 months, I think it was, living in Norway when he was doing his nursing training, and he loved it. And I loved it. I was lucky enough to be able to go and visit him. So tell us about how you ended up moving from Australia all the way to Norway. And whereabouts in Norway you live in?
Look, the only sane reason that someone would move from sunny Western Australia to rainy, cold Norway, I ended up meeting a Norwegian and we've been together for 6.5 years now. So we are back living in his in his hometown. It's a place called Stavanger, and it's in southwestern Norway. So most people, if they've heard of any cities in Norway, they would have obviously heard of Oslo, and they would have heard of Bergen or Bergen,
Yes.
as Australians say.
Yeah.
And we are about a 4-hour drive south of Bergen. So we're kind of, if we're looking at the map of Australia, we're kind of like the Perth of Norway,
Yeah.
down in the southwest
Yeah.
corner there.
I have to say, I've been to Norway a few times and I have not been that far down. I have to say, I've been to Bergen. I'm going to say it the British Australian way. I actually haven't been to Oslo, but I have been to Bergen a couple of times, and I can never pronounce the place that my husband worked at. Was he'll tell me off because I'll pronounce it wrong, but it's Leerdal, and I can hear him probably going, "No, it's not how you say it." So, which was a slightly more unusual place to actually visit.
Yeah.
But so tell me about what is life like in Stavanger. So, what have been your biggest challenges, I guess, about moving all the way over there, apart from in fact getting used to the weather, which I know would be a challenge for me?
Yes. Oh gosh, there's so many things that you just don't really think about when you're about to move country, or you're in the process of moving from one country to the other. And I think for me, the biggest challenges have been the little things. So just silly things like going to the supermarket and not knowing where to buy like a tin of tuna, or not being able to find like your favorite brand of oat milk. And it sounds so silly, but you're dealing with so much, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, moving to a new country, that it's these little things that really kind of send you over the edge. So
That's so true. You kind of look for those things that are familiar and they're not there. And those are kind of your safety blankets as well. It's like,
100%.
as you say, it's those things that you just go, oh, I just want to have my favorite this, or I want to be able to phone my doctor up, or I have a bit toothache, I would like my dentist, or it's those things, isn't it? That,
Yeah.
and I know, I mean, I've spent a lot of time moving around, and I always say the first 6 months are the toughest. Now, how long have you been in Norway for? You've been there quite a few years, or is this a kind of fairly recent-ish move in the last year or two?
So cumulatively it's kind of bordering on 2 years. So the first time I came over here was actually during COVID. So I managed to get an exemption to leave Australia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I managed to get over here. I was supposed to be here for 2 months, but you know, as many people are aware, you couldn't get back into Australia. And so I ended up being here for 4 months. And then we decided to make a go of the relationship, properly. So I had to come home for 3 months, and then, I was going to move back over here, and that was going to be it. I was going to be here for a period of time. I didn't know how long. And I got here, and 5 months later, we were back in Australia because Aspen got a job in Australia.
That's so funny.
I
How
know.
ironic is that?
I know. It was, and we went through so much to try and get me back over to Norway. And yeah, we ended up back in Australia. But this last stint, we've been here for a year now, and we've just moved into our new home. So it's, pretty permanent.
Yeah, and congratulations on that. That's a fantastic move, being able to have your own home. That's a great way of kind of feeling that you belong somewhere and having that permanency, because you can have all the things, all those familiar things you can create around you, so you feel like you're home.
100%. And I think, we've been here for a year now, and I'm just starting to feel like this is home. Like you said, the first 6 months are so hard because you're running around, you're trying to set yourself up, and people don't realize the emotional toll that it takes on you trying to, find your doctor. Over here, you have to, before you can do anything, before you can set up bank accounts, phone numbers, before you can see a doctor, you have to get a personal number. And the process of getting a personal number is so long-winded. Like, I think it takes about 3 or 4 months before you can even get an appointment to go and see someone to get your personal number.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
you're kind of
So,
like living in limbo.
yes, I'm gonna say that doesn't help with settling when you can't kind of get access to things because you're waiting for so long. And also, I've got to ask you as well, because the obvious kind of question that I'm going to ask you here is also, how is your Norwegian? I mean, I know people in Scandinavia speak very, very good English.
They
So
do.
my brother lives in Copenhagen. So the whole family is bilingual. And I've got a very good friend who lives in Aarhus in Denmark. Again, her English is absolutely impeccable. So I kind of know Scandinavians are just amazing at English. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's still good to learn the local language. So how are you getting on? What tricks are you doing, or how are you learning it, or how are you finding it?
Jeg kan snakke bitte litt norsk, men jeg kan forstå mer norsk. Uh,
Very impressive. I don't know what you just said, but very impressive.
I actually just accidentally mixed Stavanger dialect with Bookmore dialect, which I'll get into in a second. But I just said I can speak a little bit of Norwegian, but I can understand more Norwegian. So, like you said, everyone here speaks such good English that it's both great, but it's also like to my detriment, because if I start speaking Norwegian to people and I can't, or I don't understand, then I say, oh, unnskyld, jeg snakker engelsk, which means, oh, excuse me, I speak English. And then they switch to English and their English is perfect. So it kind
Yeah.
of, it hinders the learning process because you're not forced to learn the language.
Yeah.
But it's also a godsend, because if you can't understand, then they just switch to English. So yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword. But yeah, my Norwegian is still very rudimentary. Like I don't know much. I know all the important things, like how to order a wine.
Oh, well, there you go. Absolutely.
Most of my Norwegian, like, and my understanding and like my grasp of Norwegian is actually around food and beverage, which is weird, but
Get your priorities right, Monique. Honestly, absolutely.
exactly, it's that and all the swearing. Obviously, that's the first
Of
thing you
course.
learn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In any language, I think those are the first things. Please, thank you. Can I have a beer? Can I have a wine? And then, oh, go away, but not necessarily quite as nice as that.
Exactly. So I'm learning, but I think normally you'd say that the best way to learn a language is to just fully throw yourself into the deep end and immerse yourself, which is hard when they speak such good English. But I did find that going to, like, when I first came here, I did some language lessons, and those classes, we were doing 2 3 hour classes a week, which is a big commitment. But the leaps and bounds that I was taking in being able to converse in Norwegian, it was quite amazing to see how quickly you learn.
Yeah.
But now that I'm not doing that,
The thing is, though, you've done it, and you know that if you go back and do that, that's going to be the fastest way when you need to learn it, that you can learn it. I think that's always that's the thing. I lived in France about, 35 years ago now. And I actually lived with a family who the father spoke English and the mum a little bit of English, but the kids didn't speak any English whatsoever. And we actually didn't really speak any English for 6 months. I didn't hear, apart from other au pairs, I didn't hear much English. Well, after 6 months, my French was fluent. I was thinking in French. So it really is, the way to do it is just to try and switch off as much as you can. But I was in the French Alps where, some people speak English, but most of the time it was kind of like, well, no, you can try with your French. But I know how helpful the Scandinavians are, and they also want to practice their English as well, because they're so good at it. But at least you've got kind of a tactic, and you've got a kind of a strategy when you need to kind of learn it. But how have you adapted to other cultural differences? Because obviously you've got the language difference. You put the TV on and you're going to listen. Things are in Norwegian.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously these days we have Netflix. When I lived in France, there was no such thing, so I could only watch French TV.
Yeah.
But how the kind of cultural difference, being an Aussie girl, kind of going to Norway and living what are the main things that you've found? Oh, this is different.
It's funny because, people think that, Scandinavia, it's not going to be that culturally different, surely. But again, it's the little things, like, don't you dare say hello to someone when you walk past them on the street. Like, I'm used to, walking along the coastline and someone walks past and, oh, good morning, how you doing? You go to the shops and, people are putting your stuff through the checkout and you have a little chat with them, and it's just not a done thing here. People think you're weird for talking to strangers. And as much as it's not the done thing, I also don't want to not do that, because I'm Australian and I don't want to, give up my culture just because of that. So that's one of the weird things. And I think just, this is so trivial, but, adapting to the Norwegians' kind of love for and appreciation of the outdoors. So, they're always outdoors, even if it's raining, even if it's snowing. But if it's sunny, God forbid if you are not outdoors, then you have just committed the biggest crime on earth. Like,
that is so funny you say that, because I just think of Doug's Norwegian friends, and they're out running up mountains.
Yeah,
doesn't matter what the weather's like, they're literally running up mountains.
Yep.
And I'm lazy. On a Sunday, I'm in bed with a cup of tea in it. I'm quite happy with that. Biscuit, cup of tea. I'll just stay in bed all day. But in Norway, I just know on a Sunday morning, half the population are actually in Bergen, on the top of, I can't remember the name of the actual big hill mountain over Bergen. They're all running up that.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very, very, very outdoorsy. And I guess one of the other things that I'm still struggling with is because they are so outdoorsy. Actually, I think just in general, one of the things that I struggle with is their practicality. So I'm a heels wearer. Like, I wear heels. I love wearing my frilly dresses, and they just, they're practical. So they wear sneakers and outdoor gear. And I'm like, that's not fun. Like, just everything is...
dress up when you're at home, but and if you go out, so if you went, and I know how expensive it is to go out for a meal in Norway, I just think about it and I'm like, ooh. So if you were going out for a meal, would you dress up for that, or even then do you think it's quite casual?
They do dress up, but their idea of a nice dress to wear out is still very sensible compared to what even Australians would wear. And I don't know if it has to do with the weather, but I have this I have this subconscious thing whenever I go out. I always look at people's feet, because I've noticed that about 99% of the time people are wearing sneakers, and even if they're wearing a nice, a pretty summer dress, they're wearing like Nike sneakers with them. And I'm like, would it kill you to wear sandals? Yeah.
That's so funny. That's I now want to come to Norway just
Honestly,
to check out people's
if you
feet.
come to Norway next time, look at what people are wearing on their feet in summer. Like, it's generally always sneakers, and that, for me, I'm Italian, Mauritian, Australian, so I'm like color and sparkles and like all the fun details, and yeah, it's just not the done thing here. So there's very big cultural differences like that.
I have to say as well, I think that's quite a European or Northern European thing. That's kind of, I'll temper that, a Northern European thing that even incorporates the UK, where there's just a kind of preponderance of more darker colours. So people will be in the navies and the blacks and dark greys. And I found it really difficult because I spent a long time living in Southern Africa, where it was all bright colours and, just, I guess, because it was the sunny, warm climate. And I remember moving back to the UK and I was like, why is everybody just wearing black all the time?
Yeah.
And that's a nice thing, because I live in Queensland, so I can wear nice bright things again, which I really enjoy. But I do think that is a kind of Northern European. And if you are living in Northern Europe somewhere and you're listening to this podcast and you don't agree, then get in touch, and we want to see a picture of you wearing something bright.
Yes, show me your red coats. Show me your red boots. Go on.
Yeah, exactly. We want evidence, because I definitely know. I mean, you can. I colourful scarf and have a bit of pop, but I don't think the kind of, the bright colours. And talking about, I've got red boots, or a bright coloured jacket or something like that. So no, I totally agree with you. I
Yeah.
do agree with you on that.
Do you know what the funny thing is? I could count on one hand the number of black items that I have in my wardrobe. I don't even own a black coat. So when I go out in winter here, everyone's always like, "Oh, your coat. Oh my gosh." And I'm like, "Yeah, thank you," because they just
Well,
don't see it.
yeah, exactly. You know how to get the attention than walking around with something slightly different. So tell me, what is it that you enjoy living in? And I'm going to say it wrong again, so apologies for any Norwegians listening, Stavanger. What is it that you enjoy about living in that particular part of Norway, or just Norway in general?
Yeah, it's funny, like I've had to do a massive mindset change because I've learnt that if I sit here and I compare Stavanger to home and I think about all the things that I miss and, the differences, then I'm going to resent living here. So like in the last couple of months, after that 6 month mark, I've really done this about turn. And I'm like, no, it's really cool living here. It's so different. Yes, I think it's about 9 degrees and raining and it's summer right now. But like there are so many things for me to be grateful for. Like I catch the bus just around to the next suburb and we drive through all this farming area and there's deer, just wild deer, walking through the farming area. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how cool. Like there's, wild deer just near me. And there's so much ocean and water around as well. And I'm such an ocean girl. So to be so close to, like, it takes us 2 minutes to walk down to the fjord, just over there.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I've come to understand this, the love of sunshine on a good day when the sun's shining. The sun in summer, the sun's up until 10:30. So you've just got these really long sunny days. And, when people get home from work, everyone's out and enjoying it. And you can have a barbecue and you can sit out for hours. And, the little things like that, it's just so nice. And I think, it's all still very much an adventure for me now too, because I'm still learning and discovering, and it's kind of novel to still be, an Australian living overseas, and that's enjoyable in itself. But yeah, I think this part of the world is just so visually beautiful as well. Like we've got in Stavanger here, we've got a really long sandy beach, which if you ignore the ruins of the World War II bunkers and just kind of blinker to that and ignore the fact that it could only be 12 degrees, the beach actually kind of looks like some of the beaches that you'd find in Western Australia. And I think that always shocks people when they realize that there's beaches in Norway.
Yeah.
So, we've got beaches, we've got fjords, we've got mountains, we've got beautiful grassy meadows. And I think, it's just such a change from my life in Perth, where we lived in the city and multiple times a week, because of my job, I'd be going out to this restaurant opening and this new musical and, catching the bus here and, trotting down the street in my high heels. Whereas here it's like, oh, do you want to just pop down to the fjord and go for a walk? Or, it's a very different lifestyle, but it's very, very nature driven, and it's quite beautiful.
Oh, it sounds amazing. It sounds like you're kind of really enjoying it and kind of relaxing into it. I think that's something when you travel and when you've moved somewhere new. I think that you're kind of high stress for quite a few months, and then it's that you kind of relax into it and actually go, oh, this is different, but this is different in a cool way. This is something that I've not experienced before, and it builds on all those experiences that you have and that are amazing. And being a little bit older than you and having, I guess, done a few moves myself, and I look back now when I was in my 20s and early, and I think, oh my goodness, that was just so amazing that I did that, and how much it has enriched my life. So it's fantastic. I mean, that you just immersing yourself into it and enjoying it. And that's absolutely the best way to do it, Monique. And it's great
100%.
that you can kind of come on and kind of talk about it, especially because Norway isn't the first destination. When people think about Aussies actually going abroad, they usually think, oh, they're going to go to London, or they're going to do something, maybe go to America, but generally go to Europe, somewhere in Europe, but not Norway. And Norway is not the place that comes up. So let's talk about Norway, because I love Norway. I've been a couple of times. I was there when I was 11 and never forgot it, because I remembered it was so beautiful. So when Doug went over there to do his nursing, he did a Erasmus project. So he was over there and did a swap and went to do some nursing, and I couldn't wait to visit. And it didn't disappoint because it was so beautiful. But I guess, like everybody, the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about Norway is the fjords.
Yes.
But so that makes it kind of a must-visit destination. But there are so much more to Norway than that.
Oh.
So if you were going to say to somebody, if I say to you, give me the reasons why somebody should visit Norway, what would you say? And to find out the answer to that question, tune into our next episode, 26, where Monique shares travel inspiration and tips for visiting what is undoubtedly one of the most beautiful countries in the world, Norway. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Global Travel Planning Podcast. For more details and links to everything we discussed today, check out the show notes at globaltravelplanning.com. Remember, if you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review on your favourite podcast app, because your feedback helps us reach more travel enthusiasts just like you. Anyway, that leaves me to say, as always, happy global travel planning.